putting together the X-axis. I've done a little bit of this already. It went pretty quick. I just slammed two of the linear bearings in here. It went in pretty smooth. Just had to take a screwdriver into this corner right here and kind of separate it a little bit, open it up, slide them in. Same on this piece here. Put a screwdriver in here, open that up, slide the two bearings in. Follow the instructions where it says to keep the linear bearings 45 degrees offline with each other. You can kind of see that there. I did that. Just the bearings are kind of off by 45 degrees. Same on this one. And the bearings are just off 45 degrees. And then I made this piece here, the robot face or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Same thing. These bearings are off by 45 degrees in here. And then the single bearing down here. The hardest part I found with this so far, I'm not done, but the hardest part I found so far was these zip ties, shoving them through this printed part here with that hollow inside there. That was kind of difficult. I went through about 6 of these zip ties, just trying to shove them in there. They'd start to bend, and once they started to bend, basically pull them out, toss them, and get a new one and go a little further. I don't know if, well, and my printed parts were from 3D hubs. So these are not the ones from Prusa, obviously. So they may not have been as printed to the quality of Prusa. I also noticed that when I was putting this together, I'm not sure what these pieces do right here. These two little pieces right here and here. But when I was pushing that through, I was kind of pinching it like this. And this piece right here starts to crack. You can see it's a little flimsy. I let go immediately, but it does have a bit of a crack in it. It's kind of curved. I don't know if that's even turning out in the. But it's just kind of curved now that I've bent it. So see how loose it is. I'm not sure what that meant for. So I may have damaged that. We'll see. This is the part I will probably reprint first because this is PLA. No, I'm sorry. This is ABS, but it is only 20% filled, so it's not that strong. So I'll probably reprint some of these parts. These are all ABS. The only PLA I have on mine is the corners on my y-axis. Everything else is going to be ABS. So got to put my threaded rods in here. I'm sorry, my smooth rods. I call them thread. I keep doing that. I keep calling them threaded rods, and they're not threaded rods. And then let's see. This goes this way, I think. Ooh, I don't know. I gotta look at the instructions again. Or this way. Or this way. Yeah, I don't remember. I gotta verify which way it goes. But it doesn't matter because I don't have any fasteners yet. My fasteners haven't come in the mail yet. So I can't really go that far anyway. All I can do is push these rods in here, and that's all I can do. They come right back out. I've already taken them out once because I had the wrong rods in there. I had the short rods in there for the long ones. But that's as far as I can go with the X-axis. I don't have the bolts to lock down the motor. I don't have the bolts to put on my end stop. I don't have the bolts to go into the end of here, which I don't know what those are for. I don't have the bolts to put in my bearings across the whole thing. Across here, from here, all the way down. Oh, the bearings actually, the idler bearings only on this side, I'm sorry. But I don't have the bolts for any of that kind of stuff. So without the bolts, I'm kind of stuck at this point. Can't do anything else with this. This is good to go for right now. Can't do anything else with that. The Z-axis with these and the rest of the parts really requires a lot of bolts and fasteners. So I can't do anything on that. I'm stuck waiting for my fasteners to come in. The only thing else I can do waiting for the fasteners to come in, and literally the only thing else I can probably do is either I could download and get my firmware ready, but I'm not going to do that, is cut off the bottom of the frame here and over. Actually, this one's cut to size. But is it? That is not true. It is not cut to size, so I'm going to cut that to size. Cut that to size. Cut that to size, which I think I'm going to go ahead and do. I wasn't going to do it because I wasn't sure with my motors, but I'm going to do it anyway. Even though my motor's a little taller, we'll adjust for it after the fact. And I decided I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece off the end of my motor here, because that is one of my mounts on that side. So I got to cut that off to line up with this one. The motors are the same, what do you call it, depth? I don't know. Actually, they're not 100% the same, but they'll be close enough, I hope. I never got that close of a look at them, but they are just a hair off. I mean, a hair off. We'll put some rubber feet underneath them, and that'll make up all the difference. Just get a little longer rubber foot for this one. And I still haven't decided which of these two motors I'm going to use for the, what's it called? The problem I have is this is a 5-piece motor here, 5-wire motor, not a 4-wire motor. But this is the one that has the proper mounts in it for the what's it called? This piece here. So that the hot end. So I was going to use this one, but with the wrong wire, I'm not sure this is a usable motor. So I've got one more. It's a really small one. I don't know how strong that has to be. It's got the same size, everything here, and it is 4-wire. So maybe this will be the hot end motor. This would then have to be the, I guess this would have to be the X motor here, the only other 4-wire motor I have. And this would not get used unless I can figure out a way to make that a 4-wire motor out of a 5-wire motor. So we'll see. Meaning that my X motor and my hot end would be kind of small pancakes versus my Z's. I don't know. There's a lot of questions as to which one I should use where. But I still have all 4 of those, and my Y's are already in the carriage. The Y is the same size as these. So, or I could just run to the store and spend another $13 and buy another one of these, and then use this for my one up here on the thing here. That seems a little heavy to be using there. I don't know if that's a good choice. I don't think it would actually go on that side. I think it would go on the other side, but that seems a little heavy for the up here. And all it has to do is run this thing back and forth. So, not positive what I'm going to do yet. We'll figure it out. As soon as fasteners come in, we can go a little further forward. We're going to probably cut that tomorrow during the day. That's all we've got for tonight, though. Okay, so it's been about a week since I was making the 3D printer, and I put the whole project on hold. I got a big mess now, and I got to get reorganized and figure out where I left off. I stopped because I ran out of screws, and I actually couldn't do anything else without the proper screws. The millimeter screws seem to be a huge problem for me to get here in the U.S., so I went ahead and ordered them online from China. And I got all these packs of screws, which took forever to come in. Another week and a half, I guess it's been since I ordered them. And that was my big pause. I still am missing one major piece of the 3D printer, the print head, shipped from China, and you can order these things off of, I think it was AliExpress. I ordered it directly from Tom's website link. A link from his 3D Dolly 3D, .org, something like that. And had nothing to do with him. It's just that the shipment from AliExpress can be 60 days or 90 days or whatever, and we're literally getting close to that already. It's been a long time since I started this project, and I kind of forget where I am. It's been a little bit here, but I think I can catch back up. So the latest thing, let's go through what I've done real quick here. We have the Y carriage all done, moving with the end stop on there and the end stop adjustment that didn't fit on mine. So it clicks. All done, tightened up and ready to go. We have the X carriage about 50% of the way through. We switched out our smooth rods, the old ones are over there, because I was using 7.9 millimeter rods, 7.9 to 7.95 millimeter rods, and it's just a little loose. I don't know if you guys can see that way back there, but there's a little bit of play in this way. So we switched out the two Z rods. There is no play in those. Those are 8 millimeter rods. They fit perfectly. So I have 7.9 to 95 millimeter rods in the Y carriage, and I have 7.9 to 95 millimeter rods in the X carriage going this way. I have 8 millimeter rods for the Z. So I may have to replace some of these rods as we go. We shall see. The Z was my biggest concern. The rest of them are kind of gravity fed down, so they're not really going to wobble as much. I say that, but I could be wrong. A couple additional notes on the X carriage that I ran into as I was making this. I don't know if in the video you guys noticed this was on backwards, so I flipped it around. The face, so to speak, should be to the back of the motor. So I flipped that around. That was nothing. I didn't have anything bolted together yet. I added my idler inside of there. It's a homemade idler because the ones they sent were wrong. Again, I had to do that. And X stop. That's how I knew my piece was on wrong, because nothing was hitting the X stop there, so or the end stop for the X. The motor I installed is those little pancake motors that I have. Very small, 28 millimeter thick. I don't know what that means as far as strength of the motor. We'll see if it's enough to drive this back and forth. Should be fine. I've got the missing, oh here there, little drive gear for this to put the band on, to run that through there. But we don't do any of that, I don't think, until after it's on the machine itself and the Z's done. So we're done with the X. So we finished the Y, we finished the X axis. I actually just added in the Z guide screws for the 5 millimeter screws onto the top of here. And I think that's everything. I think in my last video I caught that I put some backwards and corrected it. So I am having to use screws that are too long or too short. You can't cut too short. Too long, cut them down a little bit. I got a lot of 40 millimeters. I didn't get any 12 millimeters, so I am having to cut a few screws down and file them down. Right now I'm getting ready to move on to the Z-axis. I think our first step, or my first step for the Z-axis will be I need to mount these motors to see where the bottoms of them line up, to help me figure out where the bottom of this board is going to be before I start trimming off the bottom of this board and lining up the bottom of this board. So I'm going to go ahead and mount these motors. They're sitting over there on here, and then get a base line and then mark that so that the bottom of my base lines up with the bottom of my motors before I start mounting the X-axis on here. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to pull this sheet off, since this line really doesn't matter anymore, because this line that was on here was for the size motors that came with the, or not came with, the size motors that are the Prusa size motors. I just don't have those. I have different sizes, so lengthwise. So we're going to pull off our big dividers of Prusa I3. Something that'll all come with one big tool, but we're going to have to just piece by piece again. Good enough. I mounted my Z motors to the frame, and my screws were a little long, but I only have so many size screws, so I have to work with what I have.
This motor was about half of a millimeter longer than this motor. So yeah, that's right. So what I did was I placed some washers on the underside here to get these to be the same distance apart. Now I need to go back and cut off that bottom piece of the motor there. Two of my motors, the one here, I don't know if you can see it in the video, the one on the y-axis and this one have this extended shaft on the bottom, and obviously that would interfere with this resting on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and get a rotary tool and rotozip that bottom of it off there. I'll probably put a little grease in there just so that no particles go back up in as I'm cutting it off, and then wipe it all out. Alright, I cut the board off and got that all set, and there's a lot of wobble to it. So I noticed that a lot of the wobble is coming from the motors not being level, and oddly enough, the one I added the washers to sits lower than this one. It could be the holes I drilled into the board. It could be that I measured wrong and this is actually truly the same size as this. I kind of eyeballed them. I can take a measurement with the caliper. Let's see what it says. That's a pretty bad measurement. 47.14. Can't really get above that one. 48.10. So it does seem like this motor's a little taller, but where the screws, landed in the board could have been a little different too. So I think I'm going to take those washers back out just to get those balanced out. It's ironic that I feel like it's the thickness of the washers I had added to. Yeah, so those washers need to come back out. Plus, when I cut the board, I had to take the motors off. So I had to unscrew all this, but I can't get it tight again. So I tightened it with the Phillips in the front, so I got to take the motors off anyway. So we're going to take the motors back up and tighten everything back up and put it all back together and leave the washers off this time and see how it looks. I'll be back in just a minute after I get that all readjusted. Alright, get ready to add my Z alignment here. 5mm thread rod I had to go out and cut on the bandsaw. So I'm going to be at the halfway point on these. A little tight. Figure out what the halfway point would be. About a centimeter off of there. I don't have a flat spot on my motors, so I'm hoping that this will hold. I guess I don't have a flat spot on my threaded rod either. Could always come back in and grind one in there because, man, there's a lot of wobble there. Didn't realize there'd be that much wobble. I had two threaded rods. Where are the other one? Alright, I've completely lost a threaded rod. Maybe I left it upstairs by the bandsaw. I'll be back. Yes, it was out in the garage by the bandsaw. So we're good to go. I'm just going to find the midway point on this thing again. making sure these two are butted together top to bottom. Don't know how much I should creep that down, so I'm going to go right there for now. Get me slip. I'll either tighten it down more or I'll put some boing, some flat spots on there. Take them back out and put flat spots on there. So now I think we're ready to add the X-axis to the Z-axis. Oops, I need my dots. Sorry. Supposed to go all the way down to the motor, I believe. And that is not. There it goes. Kick some pushing. There it goes. Okay. This would be great if I remember to put my bolts in here. I haven't though, and I gotta check this. Let me stop right here for a second and figure out what I have to do. I don't know if bolts have to go below and above and all that, so let me verify all that. Be right back. So I had to go back and watch Tom's videos. The nuts were just popping out the top, which after watching his videos makes perfect sense. I only used one of the Z nuts, not two, to encapsulate the M5 screw, which in turn means that I cut these bolts too short, so they are of no use, especially this back one. So now I've got to find some more bolts, get them cut to the right size again, and encapsulate the M5 nut inside of the two pieces. So I'm going to work on that for now, getting that back together on the X-axis. Alright, I've got my X-axis on my Z-axis. I've added in the extra Z nuts. I only had one Z nut in there, and I added the additional one to lock the Z nut in between the two Z nut holders. And it seems to be going well. I seem a little wide, we'll see. I may not be tight enough here. I have to now move into this phase here, adding, I know I have two of these, adding these on. It looks kind of close, we'll see. We'll see how they line up. Get those screwed in, and then I think we're done with adding the Z at that point, and we get to add the Y to the frame. So let's go ahead and add these two parts, and then we'll start moving to the Y section. Okay, we're moving along smoothly now. I was able to get my top of my Z axis screwed in and locked in. I think this is the first thing I've done that didn't go wrong. This is the one spot where I think Tom had some problems with his lining up. Mine lined up perfect, so I may have one advantage that everything lined up perfectly. Nothing else has gone great, but you know, and these are moving up and down together. There is definitely a bit of wobble. We'll see how that turns out in the end. So we are moving on to adding this now. And by this I meant the Y carriage. So I haven't put the belt on yet. I need to go back and put the belt on. I was trying to follow Tom's and Prusa's guides, and it said to put the Y frame onto the Z frame. And I've
I've done that, and one thing I've noticed that these Y frame has these feet on it, obviously, and they're sitting very rock solid. That's good. But the Z frame, look at that. That's not good. But I have a solution. It's not part of any of the builds I've seen yet, but because I have these sidewalls here and these slots on the back of these sidewalls, I can actually take a 10 millimeter threaded rod, which I don't have down here, but I have one of my old smooth rods, and I can run it across this edge here and run some washers on both sides of this, and then actually have it run out a little longer and print some feet that, just like these are, that sit out to the edge here, and that will keep this from going up and down. So what I will do is I'll put it to where it has just a slight tension forward, because it does tilt back just a hair, so a slight tension forward, and then I think that will eliminate my wobble. We'll see. That's the only solution I have right now, because that's a lot of wobble. So that's what we're going to try when we get to that point where we're actually starting to do some prints. So I'm sitting here on a rainy Saturday, getting as far as I can with my printer build. The only thing I'm waiting on is my 3D print head, hot end and all that. And what do you know comes in the mail today, finally, is the print head. Oh my gosh, couldn't have been better timing. I was literally working on the extruder body, thinking how far can I get on this, and then have to stop waiting for the actual 3D printer. And there it is, perfect timing. Okay, so we can continue on. Ran my belt across here, and that is tight. Don't know why it's so tight, but I got easy pinch here, no problem there. So it could be something with the alignment, motor, or idler bearing. I need to check and see. I don't know if it should be that tight or not, but that is really tight. So we'll get to that when we get to that point, adjusting everything. But for now, we're going to start working on the extruder body, since we have all the parts we need right now. So that's the process we're working on right now. Alright, just want to take a quick minute to show everybody where I'm at here. I've been working on the extruder head here, putting it all together. A few little small complications, but everything pretty much worked as well as it did on the videos that I've been watching. Placement of wires has gotten really messy, and my two bottom screws didn't work. I think I stripped them on the cooling fan, but there's two screws holding it, and that seems to be okay. A little unsure about where to send the wires for the motor. I spent a lot of time working on the motor. I butchered two motors to make one. I had one that had the proper head on it and one that had the proper 4 wires. So I took them apart and made one good motor for my hobnob, whatever that thing's called in there. This seems really tight, these springs on here. It just seems like a lot of pressure, so I'm not sure that they don't have too much pressure on these springs. Almost like they need to be loosened just a little bit, but any more loosening and they fall out. So the spring may just be a little too strong for this. We'll see. Otherwise, it's all ready to go and ready to mount onto wherever that goes on there. I don't know. We'll figure that out next.
I just want to give a real quick rundown of where I stand on some things. I think I have all the mechanical parts assembled, wires ran, and I'm about ready to go. The only problem I have right now is this is really tight. It does not want to just free flow, so I think I need to loosen up this. I thought I could do that with the screws on the end here, but they're all the way loose and it's still not loose enough. So I'm going to have to take the belt back off and take it one notch off in here somewhere. Don't know exactly. I'll figure that out before I go any further on that. Here with all the wires ran around the bottom down here. You probably can't see it like that, so let's turn it up. I ran my wires across everything, got them all over to the area over here. Now I have a nest of wires over here. This nest right here is from the print head. Got that all wired up. A lot of little DuPont connectors I had to cut and chop together. This one I haven't actually taped up yet and gone past here because this motor had 4 white wires coming this motor had 4 white wires coming down, the printhead motor, and I don't know which wire does what yet. So I want to make sure I have the opportunity to unplug and replug these before I go over the top of it and have to undo it all. Got my filament in there, all the rest of my wires. Let's see, what else have I got in here? Z-axis is working beautiful. The end stops are all working good so far. Here. What? Not as clicky as the other one. It works though. Okay, that's important. These are working nice. The screwing up and down is working nice. The print head, I finally got it all together. Kind of a mess putting this together. I had to take it apart like 3 times to get it all right because I put too long of screws in, those 18mm, 20mm screws. Got a little messy. I had to do a lot of cutting down of my screws and filing them off, because I only bought 4 different sizes. I bought 40, 30, 20, and 10. And you need a lot of 18mm, and you need some 25mm, and they're pretty precise, because what happens is, you know, a screw will stick from the front back, and then in the same hole a screw will stick from the back forward. And if they butt up to each other, especially right here in this horrible lighting, I'm sorry, right here, and where that double nut is right there, one on each side, the screws have to get in from each side, and if you got one screw that's too long, it doesn't make it. So I had to take those back out. I had 2 screws. Alright, sorry about that. Camera's out. I gotta go dim the data, and we'll go a little more into this printhead when I get back. But that's all for right now.